The chair lays out Senate Bill 1854 by Senator Paxton. Recognize Senator Paxton to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. The goal of this bill is to increase transparency in the decision-making processes regarding the school health curriculum. Through many discussions with stakeholders, it's come to our attention that while many curriculum standards and materials pass through the State Board of Education, which is subject to Open Records and Open Meetings Act, student health curriculum selection process is just not as transparent. The purpose of the School Health Advisory Council, or SHAC, is to allow community involvement in determining local health curriculum in our public schools. The Advisory Council makes recommendations to the Board of Trustees, who then select materials to be added to the health curriculum. While the Board of Trustees is subject to the Open Records and Open Meetings Acts, the School Health Advisory Council is not. SB 1854 seeks to ensure that the SHAC is subject to Texas Open Records and Open Meetings Act, simply to provide the same transparency given to other areas of school curriculum selection. It adds SHACs to the list of governmental bodies subject to the Open Meetings Act and to the Open Records Act. And we do have resource witnesses, or a resource witness here to answer questions. And we also are working on a committee substitute that will be coming. So,
very good, members. I will let those wishing to testify. We have 8 wishing to testify, all for the bill. We don't have any wishing to testify in opposition to the bill. So, brevity is very helpful when you have no opposition.
Yes.
So, at this time, we'll open up public testimony on Senate Bill 1854 and call for Ann Newman, Deborah Simmons, Lauren Downey here is a resource witness with Attorney General's Office, Carol Ayala, and Sharon Armke. Go ahead, you can go ahead and start.
Thank you. My name is Debbie Simmons. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in favor of Senate Bill 1854. I served on the Round Rock ISD School Health Advisory Council, known as the SHAC. School board trustees in every district are required to establish a SHAC. At a June 2012 SHAC meeting, casual attendees passed a recommendation to add a contraception unit to the 8th grade human sexuality curriculum. This meeting was held during the summer break and without proper notice to the public. In fact, SHAC members had not been properly appointed by the trustees. Parents discovered that whoever showed up at the SHAC meetings were granted membership and could create and vote on recommendations. By December, trustees disbanded the SHAC and threw out the recommendation so that a new SHAC could be established with formal membership appointments and proper meeting notices. Parents worked with the trustees and district to help make the SHAC accountable to the trustees and therefore to the citizens. According to Texas Education Code 28004, a SHAC's duties include recommending specific and general health curriculum topics for the district, such as the appropriate grade levels and method of instruction for human sexuality, health services, counseling and guidance programs, and programs for a safe and healthy school environment. These are important subjects for communities to consider. Since 2012, I have attended SHAC meetings in many school districts, advised parents on education code, and reviewed a significant number of school district websites and open records requests seeking SHAC minutes and recommendations for health instruction. A district SHAC is supposed to assist the district in assuring that local community values are reflected in the district's health education instruction. How can local community values be reflected when the local community is not allowed to witness the process? How can local community values be reflected when SHACs are not properly assembling and not documenting the minutes and decisions being made? What are districts trying to hide, and where is the transparency we expect? SHACs were created to provide an opportunity for parents to participate in this important subject. SHACs can be good. Districts are obstructing parents from participating in the process all across the state, not just in my district, not just in Austin. Please support this bill to improve transparency by requiring SHACs to comply with the Open Meetings Act. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, next.
I'm Ann Newman, and I'm in support of Senate Bill 1854, and I apologize. My printer didn't print as many copies as I thought it did, so I will email to all the members.
We'll make copies and get them to all the members.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning. The Supreme Court has upheld parental rights for about a century. Texas law says that parents have a right to direct the moral and religious training of their children, and that a state agency may not adopt rules or policies or take any other action that violates the fundamental right and duty of a parent to direct the upbringing of the parent's child. Texas law also states that parents are partners with educators, administrators, and school boards in their children's education, and that parents shall be actively encouraged to participate in creating and implementing programs. Texas law also grants parents access to teaching materials and the right to opt their children out of the materials that conflict with their beliefs. Yet, how can parents exercise these rights when they do not have access to materials or the process that approves them? Senate Bill 1854 is about transparency and accountability. If schools have nothing to hide, why keep parents in the dark? Here's an example. Would you want to know if your children were asked to play birth control bingo? Would you like to know if your children were going to play this role play lesson in class? Do you have a condom? No, but this feels good. Let's go to my bedroom. That's a lesson in big decisions. By the way, the author of Big Decisions testified against a similar bill, Senator Hughes' bill 784 last week. Or maybe the lessons you see below in your testimony. I'll be glad to take questions.
Thank you. Any questions, members? Go ahead.
Good morning, and thank you, Senator Paxton, for filing this bill, and all of you who serve on this committee. My name is Carol Ayala, and I'm a resident of Austin, a former teacher of Austin ISD, and co-founder of Concerned Parents of what was Austin, now Concerned Parents of Texas. Today, I am representing myself and Concerned Parents in favor of SB 1854. After being trained under the Welcoming Schools teacher program at Odom Elementary here in town, I resigned and co-founded this organization because of the district's decision to bring in Welcoming Schools without parental notification or consent. As our team and other parents began to attend our local shack in 2017 in search of answers and to bring attention to the comprehensive sex ed changes that were scheduled to take place in 2018 starting in kindergarten here in town, we began to discover that although Austin ISD considers itself to be progressive and a leader among school districts, in reality, the shack was out of compliance according to the Texas Code. 28.004. This included the lack of parental representation on the council that was dominated by staff. No written notice to parents concerning human sexuality instruction, no summary of basic content, no curriculum materials available for reasonable public inspection, and this is a district of 80,000 students. At the very beginning of the meetings that we attended, everyone received some detailed minutes of the meetings before. But as we continued to attend and to hold the district accountable, the lengthy submissions became phrases and three-word, like when you write something, just a couple of 3 words and who was there. And so they became very generic, the statements and their records, and it kept parents and everyone in the dark. So we started to submit FOIAs for information, right? Obviously from the district. But they had no shack documents to share with us. And what they would do is when we would go, they would give us stacks of paper this high. And they would tell us to sit in a room and that we had to sift through those papers and decide which ones we wanted, and to flag them, right, with those little orange notes or whatever, those little stickies on the pages that we wanted. But what they had done also is they would fill those stacks with duplicates, hundreds of duplicates of the same papers of emails. So we would have to sift through them. And so it would take us days to go through the documents, and we did, and cost us hundreds of dollars. So we were trying to keep our facts straight, right? Because we wanted to be able to help parents sift through what was going on in our district.
Thank you, Mayor. If you would just wrap.
Yes, and I just want to say that at the heart of what we do, as a teacher, we know that what's best for kids is when parents and school districts work together. Please help parents do that.
Thank you much. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Sharon Armkey from Dripping Springs, and I support Senate Bill 1854. Thank you, Senator Angela Paxton, for filing this important bill. I've experienced very similar things to what Carol has said in Dripping Springs. When I discovered big decisions, just forgot. Okay. When I just was asked to evaluate big decisions a couple of years ago, I could not respect myself if I didn't do something. And on your handouts, you'll see this one. I think some of you have seen this before if you've heard me testify. This is a page from Big Decisions in which they ask 6th and 7th graders to decide which behaviors are abstinence. And they're actually, all the ones that have asterisks beside them are illegal. They're actually grooming children to sexually abuse each other in 6th and 7th grade. And again, this is because Planned Parenthood has an agenda. And the other thing you'll see in your handouts is this Abby Johnson interview. If you haven't had a chance to look at that or read through it, it's about 11 minutes in, and she tells exactly why Planned Parenthood should never be in a school, because they're actually looking for customers. And underage sexual activity is a huge part of their business. So going back to the shack, as I started bringing more and more parents into the shack meeting, what I discovered is they started changing the shack meetings. At first, the shack meetings were around a big table and the parents were able to sit with us. But then the more and more parents came and said, "What are you teaching our kids?" And they were, holding up things like this and, saying, "What? You're teaching this to 7th graders?" Okay, so they changed it. So they, in a small classroom, a regular size classroom and a portable, they then put 4 different tables and blocked up the committee into 4 different groups, and they were talking among themselves, and the parents couldn't hear. We were asked to sit away from the table. Again, they figured out how to delete us from the process, and we were always speaking at the end of the meeting, not at the beginning. We even had the shack co-chair come over and say, "Don't come over to the tables. They don't want you to hear what they're saying." That doesn't sound like a public meeting. That sounds like they're actually opting parents out. They don't want parents to hear what's being said. And actually, what happened basically after the 2 long years of working through this, we were given 8 business days. The parents were asked to vote for either Scott White or Flash, and they chose Scott White by 70 to 80%. Then, at that same meeting, the shack voted 7-1 to go with Scott White, which is not big decisions and which is very much in compliance with state law. There's nothing like this in Scott White, okay? The parents wanted that. But we were told the teachers wanted Flash, and even our superintendent, I asked him last night at the board meeting to make sure I quoted him correctly. You told us that you didn't have to do what the shack said, right? Yes.
Thank
it's
you
a good
very
bill.
much.
It needs to go.
Thank you, panel. Next, we have Melissa Beckett, Kelly Greshel, Nicole Hudgens, and Denise Seibert. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Melissa Beckett. Thank you, Senator Paxton, for bringing this bill, and thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to speak. I am a parent of 3 children, ages 16, 13, and 1 year old. My 2 oldest children attend Northeast ISD Middle School and High School in San Antonio, Texas. I am here today in support of SB 1854. Ensuring local community values are reflected in the district's health education is the reason that shacks exist. But in Northeast ISD, the shack does not exist to represent the community. Northeast ISD shack meetings are now closed to the public. The day date, time, and location is withheld. There is no publicized application process for the shack. Northeast ISD administration hand selects parents, community members, and teachers to serve on the shack. Conservative-minded parents and community members are blocked from the shack. The Board of Trustees approves the list of shack members months after they have been selected and are already serving. Northeast ISD Board of Trustees rubber stamps all shack decisions, which should make them subject to the Open Meetings Act. But Northeast ISD states that having a K-Shack, which is a committee of teenagers that attend the shack meetings, is why they must keep the meetings closed for the safety of the teenagers. The director of PE, Health, and Athletics for Northeast ISD made the following statements. About their parent survey they were thinking about doing when they were adopting a new middle school human sexuality curriculum. She stated that the parent survey is for additional data, but we as the subcommittee want to make the choice on the program that we think is best, and hopefully the data from the parent survey will corroborate what we decide. Northeast ISD didn't move forward with the parent survey. Just last week at the Texas Symposium, she spoke about the opposition the district saw when selecting the new sex ed curriculum. She stated that they, parents and community, could not make a dent with us, so they moved to where they are trying to get things passed down legislatively to force us. Does this sound like an administrator that is interested in reflecting community values, or does this sound like a school administrator that thinks she knows better than the community and the parents of the children that attend her schools? Our school district should be trusted to follow the law, which in this case means representing the community that they serve. Unfortunately, school districts like Northeast ISD have proven they are not interested in representing the community as a whole, only the parents and community members that support their point of view. When I heard about what was going on and I got involved and actually looked at the details of the curriculum, and I realized the details had not been shared with the people who voted on the curriculum, I started sharing the details with the parents. I actually received a letter from the district asking me to not speak at my church and asking me to not speak to the parents, and that they would vigorously defend their position. I also discovered that they entered into partnerships prior to bringing anything to the shack. So please support this very important bill to keep parents right where they belong.
Thank you. Thank you much. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Kelly Gretchell. I'm a parent of 3, and I'm in support of SB 1815-4 because it increases transparency. And you've heard a lot of testimony here, and no matter where you stand on the issue, these types of meetings should be transparent because the decisions that they make affect district-wide curriculums. They're critical, and these curriculums are often in place for years and years. The stories that you've heard, I'm actually one of the people who experienced these kinds of interactions with the district, so I was able to go to shack meetings before they became secretive. And when I was welcomed warmly until I expressed interest in the only subcommittee that was actually deciding a curriculum, which of course would be most interesting to me as I have children in that district, when I expressed interest in that and tried to sit in, just to kind of listen and see what kinds of things they were considering, just curious or whatever, I was told that I could join anything except that one. So then I was put on a health committee in which we were discussing fundraising options for French fries or something like that. And this I found insulting because as parents, we are asked to participate. We are begged to be volunteers. But when it comes to these giant decisions that the shack is making, we're told not to show up. We're told not to be informed. When eventually they hid the shack meetings, as Melissa said, the locations weren't known to staff members and/or they weren't posted. They eventually came out with some kind of parent info sessions that they scattered throughout the district at various schools. And so, based on my schedule, I attended one where I listened to information again, just trying to seek what kind of curriculum they were choosing so I could get some more information on that. After attending that meeting, I was sent a letter which y'all received. It said I wasn't allowed to attend any of these meetings because they were quote, to allow parents the opportunity to preview the materials and ask questions, which I found confusing because that was what I was there to do. No matter where you stand on many of these issues, transparency of these types of meetings, because of the gravity of the decisions that they are making, is absolutely critical. And as a parent, no matter where you stand, you should be there hearing what they are deciding because they represent us and because they are making decisions that are going to affect our students for years. And if you want a voice, if you complain that that you don't like what the school is doing, this is the place to have that voice. And if we aren't welcome, then what are we doing? Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, committee. My name is Nicole Hudgens, and I'm the Senior Policy Analyst for Texas Values. We're the largest statewide organization focusing on faith, family, and freedom in the state of Texas, with over 100,000 supporters in all 254 counties. And I'm speaking today in favor of SB 1854. This bill is about transparency. We've had parents call our office because of the major lack of transparency when it comes to the human sexuality curriculum. Parents on both sides of the political aisle in Austin ISD were outraged when they weren't allowed to have input on the sex ed curriculum. They ended up, the school district, because of this outrage from parents, ended up sending out a survey asking parents what their input was when it came to the human sexuality curriculum. Unfortunately, that survey was skewed because it asked questions of when controversial topics should be discussed, not if certain topics should be discussed, and parents were really upset about that. Even another example was a SHAC hearing when it wasn't clear when the SHAC committee was considering the 3 R's curriculum, which is very controversial. They were discussing whether or not to use it as a resource, and one SHAC committee member raised the question of, what are we voting on? I don't have something in front of me. And they were very concerned, and it was concerning as somebody, as part of the community who's watching, going, if they don't know what they're voting on, what is really happening here? And if you look at the Texas Education Code in Chapter 28.004, you'll read that the purpose of the SHAC is to ensure that local community values are reflected in the district's health education. And what SB 1854 does is simply ensure that the SHAC is doing what it's designed to do, that it is reflecting those local community values. So it's time for there to be strong transparency on these important issues being discussed in Texas communities, and I urge this committee to vote favorably for SB 1854. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Denise Seibert, and I live in Belton, Texas. I represent myself. I ask to vote yes on SB 1854. Thank you, Senator Paxton. Since when has schools had the power to teach and instruct our children, or in my case, grandchildren, in secret? Adolf Hitler made a statement once, "He alone who owns the youth gains the future." This is the United States. This is Texas, and I'm appalled to learn that there is a secret agenda when it comes to any local school health advisory. In this case, parents aren't notified until either the teacher informs the parents or the student tells their parents what is being taught or the books read and in classes, and it's appalling, and sometimes pornographical material. When I tell others about this, I guess they are as dumb as I am, that we trusted there is a textbook or material approval process that all school material has been approved through. And I guess the parents are thought of as too dumb to be informed of what is being taught in their children's school. Because I thought, just like the people I talked to, that all school material that is taught in school went through an approval process. Since health material is the exception, it is very important that all local school health advisory meetings should be open to the public and an announcement given to the parents especially. When it comes to our local schools, there should not be any secret meetings or secret agenda when it comes to public education. Parents have the right to be informed and know what will be taught to their children. They should be able at any time to have all the books or paperwork available for their viewing. Vote yes on SB 1854. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, panel. Anybody else wish to testify on or against Senate Bill 1854? Hearing none, public testimony is now closed. Senate Bill 1854 will be left pending.